Let's talk about relational operators. These are used all the time in programming to compare things for comparisons, or as well to check things or to make sure things operate under certain conditions. First, let's talk about the relational operators. They allow you to compare numeric and character values and determine whether one is greater than or less than, equal to, or not equal to each other. So here I have a table of relational operators as well as their meanings. So we have the greater than, we have less than, we have greater than or equal to, we have less than or equal to, and not equal to. So whenever we do this, there's always going to be something on the left side. So like let's say X, and there's always going to be something on the right side. So like say Y. So this is saying X is not equal to Y. And that's pretty much it. X is not equal to Y, and then we could do this inside of a while loop. So we're going to run this as long as our X does not equal to Y. And so everything in our block would execute as long as this is true. So it would look something like this. While this is not true, this happens. And then we would have some case in here where eventually we would set possibly like X is equal to Y. And now they're going to be the same thing, and this won't execute anymore. This goes into how we would use this with our relational expressions. Relational expressions, also known as Boolean expressions, are true-false statements. So we can do that for any of these, depending on what we want to do. This is going to lead us into comparison operators, which is the if-else statements. If-else statements can cause other statements to execute only under certain conditions. To make a Boolean, it's going to be bool, just bool, and we'll set x equal to false initially. So we'll say if not x, so this means not true. We're going to want to be inside of here, and we can print out false, because the only way this is going to print is if it's false. I have some code running from previous example, ignore that. But if you want to know about these random numbers, check out the videos in the playlist below the like button. Looks like we're going to get an error because we have one too many of these, so I'm going to take that out. Yeah, one error generated. Let's try running that. So once that runs again, we can see we've printed out false because x is not true, so it prints this out. We also have else statements, and else statements is basically if this executes, this is not going to execute the else. Otherwise, if this does not execute, then this will execute. One of them is going to execute, if or else. Only one can. So if we set this to x, so as long as it's true, this will execute. Otherwise, we're going to see out and we're going to print true. So we can see that we printed out true. And that's because if x is false, well, this is now saying if x is true, this is going to execute. Otherwise, it's going to print this out. So that's true. If the value inside the parentheses is true, the next statement is executed, otherwise it's skipped. That's a general summary of what's happening here. Now, let's talk about some rules for this. When a relational expression is true, it has a value of 1. When a relational expression is false, it has a value of 0. That's how Booleans work. Any expression that has the value of 0 is considered false by our if statement. This includes the bool value false, and it's equivalent to 0. That's why we're able to do such a short comparison like this. If true, execute, otherwise if false, execute. This is not just if false, this is any other condition. This is kind of like a default statement. If this doesn't happen, this else will always happen. If you're working with like other numbers or whatever have you, the only expression that has any other value than 0 is considered true. So if you have any other value, it is true. If it is the value of 0 though, it is false. We'll go more into if statements in the next video. It'll be in the playlist link below the like button. More else if else, as well as nested if statements. That's gonna be super cool, so make sure you check that out in the playlist below the like button. If you have any questions, as always, leave them in the comments below. It's super important to understand the current or previous material before moving on to the next.